a big schos for starting this month, starting Elul, and before I introduce the Rav, I wanted to take the opportunity to give a Regois Yeshakach to Tzvi Ullman for being Masader, everything that's going on. Some of the many programs, opportunities, chavrusas, shiurim, etc. So Yeshakach Tzvi has been a lot of work through Bin Azmanim, through the summer and the current time as well, and it's a big schos that we have right here. We don't have to go far, as many others do, to hear Rabbi Shapiro, and to no need to follow. We don't have to follow him around the wherever the Dalakam Fasa'ar is. We have him right here. And he was maskim. We squeezed in the beginning of Elul before he's being pulled to so many other places that want to hear chizuk from him. And Baruch Hashem, he was maskim to come and mechazek the olam. So it's a big cover to speak to call Rabbi Shapiro for Divrei Chizuk Yeshakach.
Bershus the Roshei HaKoilel Shlita, Rav Blezer, Rav Singer. I'm very honored and humbled to be in the presence of the Roshei HaKoilel, and I also want to thank Reb Tzvi Ullman as well for inviting me and for making it such a geschmack experience. I appreciate the introduction from the Rosh Koilel Shlita, but I want to say, and I hope the Olam knows that I mean this, me'omek halev. My father Zatzal used to say, mi yodea mima chazik esmi. And he really lived by those words. I hope in the time we have, a bit less than a half hour till Ma'ariv, I hope the topic is one that resonates with people and that Be'ezras Hashem will give you chizuk. But I could tell you beforehand, in the truest, deepest sense, mi yodea mima chazik esmi, to be at our koilel and in the beginning of Elul, and to be surrounded by the Yungalite and Loimdei Torah and the Balabatim, it's not a pashut thing. And I know it impacts and affects all of us, and it should. And for that, I could say, Me'um Kedelibi, thank you, because I could tell like my father Zatzal said, Mi yodea mima chazik esmi. I have far more chizuk being given this chus and opportunity, and I hope Be'ezras Hashem together will rise to the occasion. Over the years, we've spoken out the number of acronyms for Elul. Of course, the most famous is Ani L'Daidi V'Daidi Li. There's one that a few years ago, I think it became my favorite one, and I said it this past Shabbos. I was in Gibraltar, a fabulous experience, a wonderful kehillah, and somebody came over to me and was moisiv something. I'm sorry, I didn't see Rabbi Friedman as well. I apologize. Bershus Rabbi Friedman and the Choshev Kehillah. And I said to the fellow, I said, I've said this in so many places, nobody ever thought of it, and it was such a brilliant addition. I think my favorite acronym for Elul is, when a person uses the washroom, they say that if my body did not function properly, I couldn't stand in front of you. The word that means I can't is E. If you remove the concept of I can't, what are you left with? Efshar lehiskayim v'lamoid lefanecha, which is Rashi Tevis Elul. This means that Elul is the month that's most misugal efshar lehiskayim v'lamoid lefanecha, to believe that even if for 11 months in the whole year we taka became far away, but Elul there's a bazunder, a koyach, Efshar lehiskayim v'lamoy lefanecha, such an inspiring acronym, and it works so beautifully. So I've said countless times, the rest of the year, not you try, but Elul, there's something that makes it far more alive and possible. So somebody listening says, of course, the word that you're getting rid of is the word E, I can't. And how do you spell E? Aleph Yud. And Aleph Yud is the gematria of 11, referring to the 11 months. I was so excited with that addition. I said, wow, was the guy to go to Gibraltar to hear that Isafa. E, those 11 months, of course we should try, but it's not always so easy. But removing the E, removing the 11 months, you come to Elul. Efshar liskayim v'lamay lefanecha. Rabbi Isai, I thought a lot about this topic. I've been trying to work already before Elul started on starting to prepare myself for Elul. It's a big avodah. It's a really big avodah. It means steiging in areas of Yiras Hashem. I don't mean Yiras Ha'onesh, a much higher level Yiras Hashem. That should bring a person to Avas Hashem, and of course bring a person to the greatest level, to be Davuk to the Borei Olam. So I have been trying, so together hopefully we'll create from Elul Efshar lehiskayim v'lamay lefanecha. Yeah, I think I could do it. There's very good precedence for this. My father's Zatzal and Imre Mordechai brings down such a beautiful vart. Not sure whose vart it is, but it's so inspiring to show you a raya of what Elul could do to transform you. We say Friday night in the Kiddush, Techila l'mikroi kodesh, Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. I don't even know exactly the right translation. I think it translates Mikroy as convocation. Not 100% sure what that is, but you look in the English to see the proper definition. My father Zatzal brings down in Sefer, sometimes a person feels, especially after 11 months, I'm adding that sentence, we have drifted quite a bit from where we were last Elul, last Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. So much has happened over this year. Maybe in some areas in Araveda we're not recognizable. But you know who gives me chizuk and fortitude to realize it's possible? Those who left Mitzrayim, because they left Mem Tesharei Tuma, Mamish, just a moment away from the point of no return. And 7 weeks later, how much is that? Like the drop of a dime, they were Mamish standing ready to be Makabel the Torah Ba'or Pnei Melech Hayim in front of the Borei Olam. That's amazing. That's not really much different than the avodah of Elul. Granted, Elul is a little bit shorter than the 7 weeks, but at least take chizuk if they could do it, and they reached Mem Ter Sharei Tumah. I don't think we're holding there. I hope not. But they reached it, and yet they were able to. If they could, then we could. And that's how he reads the words of the Friday night Kiddush. Techila l'mikroi kodesh. Tchila, the first thing and the first step to your chukka of wanting to achieve levels of Kiddush and wondering, but I have drifted so far, I've got to tell you in so many areas. You think you have? Here's what you should remember. Zeicher liyetzias Mitzrayim. Remember those who went out of Mitzrayim. They were able to, so could we. And there are so many areas that maybe we felt over the past year we didn't do as much in the avodah as we wanted, whether it's Shmiras Hayinayim or areas of Shalom Bayis or davening better or more Kaviyas Itam La Torah. Of course, there's a potpourri, there's a myriad of areas. But we were on the level that they were on, and yet they could. The first thing to remember when Elul's just beginning now is remember Yitzias Mitzrayim, those who went out of Mitzrayim. And if they were able to, so could we. And that's why I enjoy the acronym of Elul so much. I remind myself, get rid of the E, get rid of what might shackle us for 11 months, and nutzais the avoid. It's a grace avoid of Elul, but efshar lehiskayim v'lamay lefanecha, it is certainly possible. I know that a number of years ago, I had mentioned a story that somebody told me, but on the walk over I said, I want to stop at the right time, but if it goes over, it will be because of this Maisa, because Libi Omerli, that it's worth repeating, although I've said it, I don't know that I said it in the Koilel, but it's a true Maisa that happened on August 30th, 2012. I certainly don't want anybody verifying it now during the shmooze, and I'd hope even afterwards you wouldn't. There's no reason to. I've told this to many Choshev, Rabbanim, Rosh Koil, and as I'm saying it, they're on the computer. Yeah, Tak, it's exactly like you're saying. So I'm happy that I have the Nemonis, but it's a great story nonetheless. It took place on a tour, a non-Jewish tour to Iceland, and it was with a middle-aged Asian woman. Now, I could tell you, having been on a number of tours, one of the worst things is to leave somebody behind in an area. On one of our first trips, we left Volozhin, and we taka left. There was a younger man from Lakewood. We left him in a rest area, a wash area, and only remembered after we left Volozhin. We, Baruch Hashem, found him since. But to lose somebody is a terrible thing. So on this tour, August 30th, 2012, a middle-aged Asian woman, in the beginning of the day, she was dressed in very elegant, dark clothing. Whatever the excursion was in the afternoon, she changed. I guess it was some type of sporty event. She put on drastically different color clothing. It was yellow, sporty clothing. The clothing from the morning to the afternoon was mamish mizrach l'mayrev. Is everybody accounted for? The head of the tour wanted to know, so everybody did the searching and the looking. No one could find the Asian woman in elegant, dark, formal clothing, not realizing she changed to dramatically different clothing, but nobody could find the one they were told to look for. I realize the next line sounds hysterical and preposterous, but believe me, it's exactly as it happened. Everybody started the search. It was like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. It was pachat bechodim, and the woman joined in the search. She looked for herself. And after a number of hours, she realized, oh, I found me. They mean me. And she had the most unenviable task of going over to the authorities and saying, here I am, I found me. And they asked her, and this is the part you could see, all the news media said, lady, how did you not realize we meant you? And she said, quite honestly, I didn't recognize my own description. Meaning, the description was for someone in one type of clothing. She changed to such dramatically different clothing. She didn't recognize her own description, so she looked for herself. That's exactly the way the story happened with every pitchivka. And I thought to myself, it's a humorous story, but I and you and we are not so different. Because there is a description out there of us, and it's an Elul description. But sometimes during the 11 months, we sometimes don't remember that description. We don't even believe in the description. After what I've done and I've drifted, I could be like those Yaitse Mitzrayim to see Ba'or Pinei Melechayim. Don't suffer during the month of Elul, the Asian woman in Iceland syndrome. Sometimes during the 11 months, the months of we might do it, and I'm not saying that's not a different type of avodah, but chach, at least in Chodesh Elul. Elul is a time, Zeich L'Tzias Mitzrayim. I won't suffer from the Asian woman in Iceland syndrome. There's a description of what I could become. Efshar lehiskayim v'lamoy lefanecha. Every person, it's a very personal avodah. It's a very personal avodah. I've tried to give quite a bit of thought to the avodah that I need to do, the areas that I need to improve. It's a very personalized avodah. But whatever your avodah is, it's the month of Efshar lehiskayim v'lamoy lefanecha. In other words, not suffering from, I didn't recognize my own description. This is a starke month of reality. In fact, if you take a look, you could see this concept as well. The Pasuk says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. Now keep in mind this chassid, because Be'ezus Hashem, towards the end, before Ma'ariv, I want to end with a bracha, based on the words the Slonim Rebbe says, so moving. But Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, I'm sure you know, many of the Svarim HaKadoshim say is a reference. It's based on a Zayar to Rosh Hashanah. The Yom is a reference to Rosh Hashanah. Well, that would seem to make sense. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, all of Klal Yisrael, no matter who you are, kol boi olam, atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, we are all standing on Rosh Hashanah by the Ribono Shel Olam. And that's the way many understand those words, to be a clear reference to Rosh Hashanah. But I saw so beautifully that you first have to realize the word kulchem. We tend to translate the word kulchem to mean that we are all standing here on Rosh Hashanah, and that's true. But on a deeper sense, the Slonim Rebbe brings down that the word kulchem doesn't just mean quantitatively every person. Kulchem means every part of you. On Rosh Hashanah, atem nitzavim hayayim kulchem. Every part of you has to be standing and subjugated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that really is a frame of mind to have during Elul. What are we doing to our kulchem? Yes, sure, there's some things that I do better than others, but the idea that he says of the word kulchem is, remember on Rosh Hashanah, atem nitzavim hayayim kulchem, all of you, every part of you. That means I could take my eyes, v'hareineinu b'sayrasecha, and do proper shmiras hayinayim. That means I could take my ears and use them not to listen to Lashon Hara Achilas, but to better listen to what my spouse is telling me. I can use my feet to takabi, b'chol eidesecha, like David HaMelech says in the beginning, to go everywhere that I can, to possibly do mitzvahs. To be able to use every part of you and subjugate it. I think that's a very realistic approach of an avodah for Elul. How can I approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the day of Yom Kulchem? I want to better use my ears, Lavodas Habari. I want to better use my eyes, Lavodas Habari. I want to better use my feet and my heart and my brain and every part of me. Kulchem, Kulchem, every part of you. It's certainly something that I believe is possible, and I'll bring what I think is a very nice raya to this idea of all of you. It's brought down that in the Rosh Hashanah davening we say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Meloich al kol ha'olam kuloi. I wait for that day, and you do on this day serve over the entire world. Why, asks the Taz, do you say the word kol twice? Meloich al kol ha'aretz kuloi. Just say Meloich al ha'aretz kuloi. What's with the word kol? You already said the word kuloi in its entirety, all in its entirety. Isn't that a redundancy? So the Taz explains so beautifully, if I would only have the word kulei as in meloich al ha'aretz kulei, I would say, like we say very often throughout Gemara, rubai kekulei, rubai kekulei. So if I would only say the word kulei once as in meloich al ha'aretz kulei, I might think, you know what? If the Rebbeinu Shalaylam will reign and have his sovereignty over the majority of the world, I'm okay with that. After all, isn't there a principle in Shas, Rubai Kikule? I'm okay with that. We're not okay with that. We're not okay with that. Mamela Zok the Taz, that's why we go out of our way in davening to say, Meloich al kol ha'aretz kulei. I don't want the kulei of Rubai Kikulei. I want the kulei of kulei. Meloich al kol ha'aretz kulei. I want Hashem's sovereignty and kingship should be not on the majority falling back on the principle of Rubai Kikulei, but on the entirety of the world. Light that shot of the Taz, why you need Kol and Kulei, because we're not settling for Rubai Kikulei. Maybe that's the same thing we said earlier. When we have to stand in front of Hashem and approach Him, Kulchem, it means every part of us. I don't want to settle for mediocrity. I don't want to settle for Rubai Kikula. You know, I'll be okay if most of me serves Hashem. I'll be okay if I'll use most of my Evarim properly. You're settling for that? If you're settling for that, you might as well settle for Rubai Kikula and only say the word kol once. I think that's what it means that we ask Hashem, Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem. I want every part of me, not the Rubai Kikulei. I'm good with my eyes, not so good with my ears. I'm good with my davening, not so good with my learning. I'm pretty good with my avodah, but not so good with my chesed. That's not Elul Dik. Elul Dik is a time to try to find the Kulchem as the Taz explains it. I thought of a nice raya to this. My father in Imre Mordechai brings down something for me. It's very personal. I think it's beautiful that my Zaidi, Rabbi Yosef Shapiro, was a Rav in Pittsburgh for over 40 years. And when my father was a very little boy, he says in Sefer, when I walked to and from Shul, presumably from Shul Friday night, he said, my Zaidi would tell him stories, Maisa. So he said, this was a mashal that his father, my Zaidi, said very often. And I always understood the mashal, but when I saw this Taz, and when I saw the Kulchem of the Slonim Rebbe, uncle, or Muttel Weinberg, the Yeshiva in Montreal, used to say, to hear a story is nice, but you have to say, what's the pshat in the story? A story has to have a pshat. You have to touch it up good. So I think this might be the hezber and the mashal my Zaidi said to my father as a little boy. And it was that a young boy came home. This was the mashal he told my father. And he wanted to spend time with his father, but the father worked very hard that day, and he was extremely torrid and busy. And the last thing he wanted was to start playing ball or whatever it was with his son, but he didn't want to come across as an uncaring, gruff father, so he hit upon a plan. He found the newspaper where he saw the paper was a map of the world. And what did he do? He thought about a brilliant plan. He ripped it up into like 100, 150 pieces, creating a puzzle, if you will. And he told his son, who never learned any geography, he was a little kid, go ahead and put together the map of the world. And after you do that, I'll be happy to play with you. You figure that he bought himself easily a couple of hours of a little R&R, and then he'll go ahead and play with his son when he came back with a complete puzzle. But not 5-10 minutes later, the little boy came back and presented him with a perfectly completed puzzle, now made perfect, a map of the world. So he asked his son, you don't know oceans, you don't know geography, you don't know any of this stuff. How in the world did you do it? Innocently, the boy answered. He said, Tati, on the other side of that page of the magazine newspaper was the picture of a man. I worked on putting the man together, and when the man was complete, the world came out perfect. And that's what my Zaidi used to tell my father, and I always enjoyed that mashal, put the man together for the world to come out perfect. But based on what the Taz says, with the explanation of Kulchem, it dawned on me, every person is a world unto themselves. Maybe that's the pshat in the story, the mashal of the little boy, when he said, I put the man together, and the world came out perfect. The hezber is because a person is an olam katan. A person is a world. I'm a world, you're a world, you're a world, you're a world. Each one of us are a world, and that's Takad B'Shat. We ask Hashem, Meloi Chal Kol Ha'olam Kulai. When it comes to my world, when it comes to the entirety of my world, I hope all my Evarim will be subjugated to you, so you will rule over the entirety of me. It's not just a din in the oilam, in the geography. It's a din that every person is an oilam male, an oilam katan. Each of us are a world in and of ourselves. What a beautiful way to go into Rosh Hashanah, asking Hashem, I'm an oilam, and I beg you, Meloich al kol ha'oilam, me, rule over all of me. If I subjugate myself to you, Hashem says, you make the world come out perfect by you putting yourself together. Efsher lehiskayim, v'lamoid lefanecha. I really believe it's possible. Perhaps one suggestion before we end with a bracha of how to achieve this darga that I believe is tangible, practical, and pragmatic. And I hope everyone will try. Ani l'daidi v'daidi li. It's a funny word, ani. Ani is not really a word in and of itself. Everybody translates it to mean I. I think the word ani is actually a conjugation. Because the word bini, is the word bini a real word? The word bini is actually haben sheli. I make it simple by saying bini. So if bini is really haben sheli, then wouldn't it stand that ani is ha'on sheli? What's an on, aleph, nun? In Pirkei Avos we say, everybody has to know, me'ayin basa, and la'on ato haylech. So on means a direction. So I think the real definition of the word ani is, just like bini is haben shali, ani is ha'on shali. Ani, ha'on shali. During Chodesh Elul, what is your direction? What is your direction? What's your avodah? What's your she'ifos? What's your matorah? Ani ha'on shali, l'daidi. L'daidi is to serve the Borei Olam, to get closer, to make a kulchem, to bring back that I recognize who I am. Oh, says the Ribono Shel Olam, if you will accomplish in Elul, ani ha'on shali, that your direction is l'daidi to me, then guess what? V'daidi li. Because you're an olam malay. What is your direction? So I was wondering, what should our direction be? I just found a few months ago ksovim from my father's atzal that are not in the sefer. I was so taken by mamish a few lines of a story that he brings down. he talks about a man that was walking along a very slippery and precarious road, and unfortunately every step he took, he went two backward. One forward, two backward. Now obviously with that, he'll never be able to make it to his end goal. One forward, two back. Somebody went over to the fellow and said, I have a very simple solution. Turn around and walk backwards. And that's exactly what he did, because if you walk backwards and take one in that direction, you'll take two in the proper, and eventually you'll make it to the end goal line. And I thought maybe that's ha'an shali. My direction is first, turn backwards, walk backwards, see what it is I need to do in my avodah, what it is I need to improve, what it is this past year. We gave some examples, certainly not enough. What is it this past year that needs chizuk? And then when you walk in that direction, it ends up bringing you two steps and two steps and two steps to be able to greet like the Yaitse Mitzrayim, Bar Pnei Melech Chayim. So I think that is accurate to say, ha'an shali, a possible way to do a direction is like in the story, walk backwards. Walking backwards doesn't mean regressing. Walking backwards means looking to see what was, to be able to use that every step of the way to take two forward. That's the way to make it to the end goal. I hope, Be'ezus Hashem, we are Zaycha. Avodah of Elul is a big avodah. It's really an avodah, but it's an avodah that could be very well within our reach. As we said, the acronym, Efshar L'Skayim V'Lamoy L'Fanecha, and if the Yaitse Mitzrayim could do it, we could do it. Each one on a very personalized level, me, you, all of us, kulchem, think of different inyanim by looking back, taking a step back, i.e. reflecting over the past year, bein odom la'atzmi, bein odom la'chaver, bein odom la'makom, and seeing what is it that could make me go forward. I hope then we merit the bracha. That pasuk I told you, Atem Nisamayim Kulchem, is literally filled with references to Rosh Hashanah. I already told you a few of them from the word Hayim and from Tu Pshatim from the word Kulchem. And then I saw the Slanim Rebbe bring out something so beautiful. The word nitzavim is a funny word to say standing. Last I checked, the more common word is the word oimdim. You're either yashim or you're oimdim. What is the difference, he says, between oimdim and nitzavim? He says oimdim is, I happen to be standing. Instead of sitting, oimdim, I happen to be in a position of standing. Nitzavim denotes you're standing with somewhat of a healthy confidence. You're standing with a purpose. You're standing with a proper dose of assertiveness. That's really a healthy way to go into Rosh Hashanah, as we know, Gilu B'Ra'ada. Atem, not Oimdim Hayayim. Ay. Oimdim is for people who did nothing with their Elul. People who utilized an Elul or Zaycha to go into a Rosh Hashanah. Atem nitzovim. To stand with a confidence, to stand with an assertiveness, to stand with a sense of purpose in a healthy way that comes from understanding we subjugate everything we have to the Rebbeinu Shalom. May it be the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that all of us get rid of the E and have a moiridika chodesh Elul of Efshar Lehiskayim V'Lamoy Lefanecha, so that Be'ezras Hashem Rosh Hashanah Haba Aleinu L'Toiva we could taka say Atem Nitzovim Hayim Kulchem. Hatzlacha Rabbah.